We made it.
Yay! Good job, everybody.
So Liz and I prepared a little bit of key messages, key takeaways for you for today. I hope you enjoyed the different perspectives and sort of a bit of like training us on thinking about health communication, risk communication from different angles, including where infodemic managers fit in. So this is where we've been. Step 2, delivering high quality health information and programming. And this is especially the one part, the basic function of health authorities that we all need to work towards during an emergency. Shall we start with the key messages, Liz?
Let's do it.
Key takeaways. Will you do the first one? I do the second?
Sure. In emergencies, people process information differently. They tend to believe the first thing they hear. They look for additional sources of information. They have trouble processing complex information. This is like the perfect storm for why in emergencies people are particularly vulnerable to infodemics. And of course, in this function, infodemic management is intimately linked to a strong communications, risk communications and community engagement response, that this is an ecosystem of support. There's no point to doing amazing job doing social listening and developing infodemic reports and thoughtful analyses if it's not actually going to result in some sort of communication and engagement with communities to change health behaviors. So this is where this piece is really, really important for you to understand how infodemic management links into the larger communications and programmatic response. And then I think it's also important to say there will be always an inherent tension between being first and being right in communication. I think Supriya and Kirsten really articulated this well, as did Richard, but infodemic management insights can help shape messages and their delivery that address people's concerns and information voids quickly. So even if you don't have all of the scientific facts, you don't necessarily have all the evidence available to you immediately, what you can do is acknowledge that people have questions, acknowledge that people might be worried or scared, and that you need to really clearly signpost what is known and what is not known. And then most importantly, what you're doing about it to figure out what is not known. So how are you going to fill those information voids in the future and tell people what they can expect in the future from you for communication and guidance.
I see some of you taking notes frantically. We will actually collate the key takeaways after each session into one document for you. So you will have that as a reference, including some of the other stuff. So we hope that this will be useful for you going forward. So second half of the key takeaways actually relates to specifically looking at, serving the most vulnerable and bringing health information to the most vulnerable in the society. This is related to the lecture I gave at the beginning of the training, where specifically, if we think that, or if we keep in mind that that infodemic management helps to address and work within a societal environment where stigma and social cohesion are loosening because of the infodemic, then really, one way that the health system as a whole, we as practitioners, public health practitioners, can help address this is by really paying attention and prioritizing the vulnerable populations and vulnerable groups first. This is not just a matter of communication. It's a matter of how do we make sure that those populations are first served, that they receive the services, and of course, that we also bring health information to them and services in such a way that they can protect themselves. So why is this important? Because those people that are the most vulnerable in society, that are least attached, or that they have weak linkages to the health system, they are also most vulnerable to the infodemics. So really, it's really important that when we look at listening to communities, that we also specifically don't just incorporate social listening, use social listening systems methods that are only looking at the population, at the general population level. We must need to take steps and efforts so that we understand the concerns, the questions, and the challenges that the vulnerable communities face. This information, through your infodemic insights, can then feed both into communications planning, risk communication planning, and the health programmatic response. So, and then, when we're thinking about, okay, these are methods for being able to understand the concerns of these vulnerable communities. But it's also extremely important to understand, well, who are the trusted messengers that these communities relate to. And sometimes we miss some. What is a community? It's not only related to a place of worship or a place of a community, local community gathering spot. We also need to be thinking about where people work, where do they gather, and this could also be online. So some communities, some vulnerable populations actually will only meet online and exchange information that way, which means that this is also where we need to interact with them to understand their concerns and also interact with them. So we prepared some key resources. Liz, would you like to comment?
There are many resources. There's a world of a universe of things here, but I highly recommend our CERC page. There's tons of stuff there. The Communicating Risk in Public Health Emergencies WHO guidance is also excellent. There's an open WHO risk communication course you can take as well. We also have a few other tools further down as it relates to the Clear Communication Index. There's also readings that are excellent. I highly recommend the Ebola Narrative and Mistrust paper because it really talks about why is it that if you live in a low trust community or setting, how that might impact your vulnerability to misinformation and questions and concerns, and how that might impact health behaviors. There's a huge range of additional resources from UNICEF and WHO here as well. Please take a look. And the RCC Collective Service webpage has a huge repository of different materials in different countries that also might be worth looking at if you're looking for guidance and advice on that. All right, so we have a range of metrics and measures that you might be able to use, and these are just some of them. We've talked about some of these as it relates to engagements and mentions and web analytics before, but you also want to consider reading level. So for example, in the US, we have to ensure that all content from US CDC has a maximum reading level so that we make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. You also might want to consider understanding narrative trends and how questions are being asked. So if you address questions successfully, you probably will see fewer of them over time, and that's what you're looking for because you're addressing those information voids. You also want to look at message performance during pre-testing or A/B testing. So thinking about what are people resonating with the most, and leverage those tests to figure out how to optimize them further. And then those key messages being spread, how far are they being spread into other networks and influencers beyond the health authority? That's another sign that this is working and that your messages are getting out there. So just think about how this might help you really see how well you can communicate and conduct that programming far beyond maybe what a health authority might have set out to do initially.
Right. And these types of metrics really basically embody, in my mind, the type of added value that an infodemic manager brings when forming communication strategies. So we really focus on enabling those messages to actually get an effect, and that we also understand if they are getting an effect on this. Right. What do infodemic managers need to know, Liz?
Effective delivery of health information is the foundation for any other infodemic management activity. You cannot do infodemic management without a really robust risk communication and RCCE response. It is the pointy end of the stick, as I like to say, and it really is where the rubber meets the road for so many infodemic challenges that are diagnosed. And social listening can detect those concerns and questions, information voids, but communications and programming should address them, which can only be done if you have colleagues in other departments who utilize those insights. Remember how I said on day one, If you launch an insights report in the forest and there's no one there to read it or act on it, did you actually manage the infodemic? And the answer is no. This is where it's really critical you have those relationships and that you're learning, data sharing, and then sharing out useful insights that make your colleagues' lives easier and their work more effective. You also want to consider message pretesting and other techniques for optimizing messages. This doesn't need to be really time consuming or expensive. You can do this really relatively quickly. Even Kirsten pointed this out. Sometimes you just need to share this with one or two members of the target community to see, does this pass the laugh test? If you have more time, you can do more in-depth pretesting and focus grouping, but you can do this quickly. And you need to consider how frequency, genre, and format play into how those messages are delivered and how effective they are. And the flip side to this is just sharing information is not sufficient. You have to provide actionable information. What is someone supposed to do with this information that is provided to them? Nothing is scarier than telling somebody how big a health issue is, but then not equipping them with information about what they can do about it. And so who the health authority thinks is a trusted messenger is not actually a messenger that is trusted in specific communities. So check your assumptions constantly. And if you leverage the wrong messengers, it can really backfire. So be very, very thoughtful when you're trying to decide which messengers to work with.
Right. And what do managers or infodemic managers need to know? So as you've been listening to this, well, sometimes really there would be a disconnect between where the insights, the infodemic insights are generated, and then who can take action to push out credible communications and programming. So it's really important that you work through the structures within the health authority and through partnerships so that you bridge this gap, so that you facilitate through your role that the insights are actually influencing, that they're being taken up and they're influencing the decisions about how the health authority will communicate and how it will also respond to the community needs through other health program actions. What's really important is also to pay attention to the fact that how we respond and the speed of the response is really important during an emergency. So it's really important that there's advocates within the health authority to really not just push the insights into the decision-making process, but that the messages are shepherded through, that they're facilitated through the scientific and communications review process as quickly as possible. So managers and academic managers can really help through this by also explaining why speed is important, speed of response is important, not only getting things right. Also, what's really important here is that you in your role have a big role to play in fostering collaborations with infodemic management and those working in risk communication community engagement to ensure that there's really good exchange of information and coordination. We all may be using very similar tools. We don't need to duplicate, for example, a collection of information or social listening in different communities. But what's really important is that we collate all of that information together, and that the infodemic insights bring value then back to the risk communication community engagement and bring value back into the programmatic response. So your job as the manager is to basically facilitate, be the glue at the strategic operational level. Liz, how about considerations for different operating environments?
All right. So, if you're riding the mountain bike, sometimes the person developing those insights might also be asked to develop the communications or programmatic strategy and outputs. So you're both diagnosing the problem and then creating the solution to the problem. If you're just one person. And really what you can do is make an effort to work side by side with your RCCE colleagues to improve coordination and figure out how can your insights help them make their jobs easier and more effective. If you are driving that 4x4 kind of middle of the road capacity for resources and infodemic management expertise, you want to create a regular reporting and coordinating rhythm with RCCE colleagues to share insights and inform communications and programmatic activities. And also ask if your colleagues have additional data sources available to them that they might share with you that can be integrated into the insights work, which will ultimately make your insights more powerful. The more data sources usually means higher quality outputs. And then if you are lucky enough to drive the luxury 4x4, I should say the luxury vehicle, you want to consider about how you might innovate new rapid message testing methods in collaboration with RCC colleagues. Think about how networks can use edit and remix messages for different formats, such as using templates. Create those regularly recurring reports with ways to take action with this focus specifically on vulnerable populations if you have insights available to them. It's going to take more effort and it's going to be more expensive to understand communities that are not online or are not readily accessible. But those are those that you need to try and develop insights for, because those are the ones that are hardest to reach, that might have the most challenges accessing or taking up of different health services. So really do what you can to hone in on vulnerable communities, especially, and that might change from which part of the pandemic or the emergency or response that you're in. That will shift over time as well. And again, just to remind people.
The reminder, yes. This is just a reminder of this concept of what the three vehicles are, and but I think we're concluded here. The last thing that I just wanted to remind everyone of, because we've really flooded you with a lot of information about wisdom, is to just do a reset of where we are with the assignments. Liz, before I do that, is there any other thing that we need to say before we go to wisdom?
Nope, I think that's it.
Yeah, okay. Let me just prepare the next presentation. So congratulations, the infodemic in wisdom is totally dropping, raining all around you. And also, as everyone is deployed in the field, you're getting a bunch of requests to help. So this is a summary of the different information drops that you've received as of this morning. And I updated this slide for you, which is what are the tasks and what are the current things that your teams have been tasked with. But first, really, congratulations. You all came through with the 3 tasks that were due this morning Geneva time. Liz and I have already looked through them. Actually, the responses are extremely thoughtful, and we will prepare a summary of them so that you can, so that we can discuss the key points that all of you submitted. We will actually carve out a little bit of time on Thursday to show you and discuss with you what the groups have produced so far. What you have received is 4 more tasks. One is now that you've cultivated relationships with your collaborators, life has moved on for them, and you've received an updated set of cards, character cards. But now you can ask them questions, and this is task 4. Where if you ask questions to these characters by the beginning of the weekend, they will respond to you in time so that you can incorporate at least the information that they have available for you into your pitch to the minister. So be smart in the question that you can ask, 1 per character, so that you can perhaps get information that will help inform your pitch to the minister. The other 2 tasks, task 5 and 6, have to deal with an operational problem or challenge that you've been asked to address. One is related to the Burning Rooster Festival and advising the organizers with a lot of comments and questions that they're receiving. There's some pressure from the government structures there as well. And the task 6 is related to now the seriously circulating memes and misinformation related to you can get COVID from fish. So I think this has sort of wrapped all of the foreshadowing that and the messages that you've received over the weekend on this. I will circulate this presentation at the end of the class today. I literally just summarized and copy pasted the tasks that you had received individually. Please don't worry yet directly about how to deliver the Ministry of Health pitch. You will receive detailed instructions of how to submit it next week. But this is just to focus you. You are now thinking towards what you do want to ask the minister in the 5 minutes when you will be addressing them. And then lastly, we have prepared another creative assignment, just optional for fun. If you want to play a little bit, experience the bad news game or any of the other games that are actually forms of social inoculation, we challenge you to please play and then submit your high score and see who can actually beat the game and who can be the biggest master of misinformation in the bad news arena. Liz, anything else to add?
I just really worry about those infodemic managers who get really high scores playing bad news. So that means they're too good at this. But yes, go ahead and post your high score on WhatsApp or share with us as well. If you do end up playing it, I'd be curious to see how well you all score compared to cohorts 1 and 2. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We hope that you got a lot of varied experiences and reflections and useful tips and tricks from Kirsten, Supriya, and Richard. We're really glad that you could join us today. And we're looking forward to seeing all of you later this week as well. And just a reminder, this is it's a slightly off week. Our next session will actually be on Friday. So just please know that, so you don't show up at this time on Thursday and expect to be part of our discussion. So just keep that in mind. Check your calendars, check your invites, and let me, Tina or Catherine, know if you have any other questions. You know how to reach us on WhatsApp. Otherwise, we hope you have a great rest of your day, or day, evening, morning, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Great to have spent time with you. Bye, everyone.